Hello and welcome to my channel Health and Wellness with Emma Mentel. Today's topic for this video is all about beating burnout, identifying your stress type, and just a few tips and some of my guidelines around considering the kind of stress that you are under, as well as how to approach finding the right strategy or finding some kind of a support protocol for when you are experiencing fatigue. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and please share your comments about any of this that may resonate for you, and if you have any questions. So before I delve into some of my approaches using the functional nutrition and functional medicine model of approaching stress, fatigue, and the different stress types, as well as burnout, I would like to mention that, I'm really familiar with chronic stress. I'm quite familiar with chronic fatigue. I really struggled in my youth up to about the age of around 26 years with debilitating fatigue. At the time, the causes were mostly viral, I would say, the glandular fever, Epstein-Barr kind of connection, as well as probably a whole lot of other things that contributed. As we know with any condition and any diagnosis, and as this process continues, that it really is like the perfect storm. And in my approach with clients and also with my personal stories, I don't see any diagnosis or condition as a one cause, one cure situation. So in the functional medicine model, what we use is a matrix of different contributing factors and really marking off the timeline. So literally, when I see a client in my practice, I look at from birth, even pre-birth, what have been the different exposures to different stresses, to different medications, what were the different surgeries, the stressful situations, any traumas that this person has experienced, and that will start to inform how one would approach it and where things started really going wrong. I find this to be a much more holistic approach compared to just looking at where the person is right now and how to get them out of that crisis. Often when we can look at the bigger picture and appreciate everything that has got this individual to where they are now, it feels more holistic to then put all the different pieces of the puzzle together and plan a kind of a support program that will consider all of these factors. So when I try to identify the kind of stress type that an individual is struggling with, I use something called the Stress Identity Questionnaire, which is something we use in the functional medicine approach. And the individual will be answering true or false and will score different questions. And then from there, I will get the results, and I will then use this to find where to place them at in this consideration of what the stress type is. Now, just to go back one step, we obviously want to understand whether the body has got a normal, a eustress kind of approach, so whether this person is able to adapt appropriately to the stresses in their life, or whether this stress has become a burden and has become so prolonged that it has now affected how this person can work, how they can cope, how efficient they are at work, how they feel on a personal level, and how this impacts them on a daily basis. As soon as stress becomes debilitating, as soon as stress becomes overwhelming, and somebody feels like they are not coping that well, or that they feel more and more depleted, this can become really harmful in the long term, especially if one doesn't then intervene and find the right kind of approach to support them. And again, I'm going to use the analogy of the car. If you don't pay attention to when the fuel light goes on, when the battery light goes on, when the oil light goes on in your vehicle, or when the tire pressure is not what it should be, if you just ignore that and keep driving, at some point you're going to run out of fuel and you're going to, get stuck on the side of the road. And the body is the same. So with the stress identity questionnaire, it's about evaluating this individual's perceived stress. And we look at symptom frequency. How often do you feel this? What is the intensity? Is it a 2 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? And then from here, the main 4 areas of stress that one can identify would be stressed and wired. So somebody who feels wired most of the time, or they can be stressed and tired. So for them, the overriding symptom is the fatigue. Then you will get some individuals who will feel stressed and mentally exhausted. So for them, it's more a case of feeling like cognitively they can't focus, their thoughts aren't clear, and they're really struggling with that cognitive process on a daily basis. And then the 4th main type would just, I wouldn't say just be, would be stressed and worried. So this person main symptom would be worry. And then I've definitely seen clients with overlaps where when I look at the scores of their different parts of their questionnaire, their stressed and wired score is very similar to their stressed and tired score. So for those, I would then have to combine the approach to make sure that we are addressing the fatigue as well as getting them out of that wired state so that they feel more relaxed. So there are some really useful tools to be able to identify the type of stress. And this is important from a practitioner's point of view, that we don't just have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. Everybody's stress is so different. Everybody's lead up to this point is so different, and how they are experiencing it will also be so different, and therefore the approach should be unique. It should be a personalized approach for each person. Even though some of these protocols and strategies might look the same, we want to make sure that we find the best approach for each of these clients or patients at the time. So what are the main factors that I would consider in a kind of a restoration approach? Of course, there are going to be nutrients. There are going to be sometimes, quite big dosages of certain nutrients that I use, and I will mention those. I think of this as really trying to restore the health of the individual, restore the health of the cell, restore the body's ability to adapt to stress. But at the same time, I want to look at what are the things that have contributed to this individual getting to this point where their stress is getting in the way of how they cope. stress is getting in the way of how they function and how they relate to others and even how they relate to themselves. One of the most fundamental approaches and one of the most fundamental factors to consider, number one, I would say, is sleep. If somebody has had disrupted sleep for a long time, and if they are struggling to get good quality sleep, a minimum of 7 hours a night, some people say I can get away with less, but in the long run, it will start to cost you. So if sleep has been one of the big factors contributing to somebody feeling burnt out, and also somebody feeling fatigued, and they just cannot get on top of sorting out that sleep-wake cycle, then my primary focus initially will be on resetting that body clock. So when sleep time is sleep time, the body now knows it's time to rest. And there are various approaches for that, which I will talk about in a different video. But I think what has really affected so many people in the last few years, more than we probably want to admit and acknowledge, is screens, social media, scrolling, people working on emails and laptops and screens until late at night, and then going to bed and then feeling like they can't really switch off. So the term sleep hygiene has been used to describe that hour before you go to bed, that you ignore your screens, that you somehow start to retrain your brain to know that it's now sleep time. So you can't watch a suspense thriller until the minute you want to close your eyes and go to sleep, because now your brain is thinking, this is time to be awake, it's time to focus. You can't work on deadlines right until the last hour and then go to bed and thinking instantly you're just going to relax. Some people have an amazing ability to switch off and go to sleep, but it's a good idea to wind down like we do with children. There's sort of a winding down period before we put them to bed, and I think we need the same. Then, of course, nutrition is so important in the process of developing fatigue, developing burnout as well. And I can understand why it's so difficult for some people when they're feeling so depleted, so overwhelmed, so rushing from A to B and deadlines, this, that, and the other, so many responsibilities, to then also prioritize nutrition. But you can imagine that somebody who's this stressed and under so much pressure, their nutrient requirements, their nutrition requirements will actually be higher than somebody who's just very relaxed, very chilled, feeling, very easy, whatever. And so we should be paying attention to your nutrition even more so when you are going through times of stress, or when you have been in a continuous, prolonged, stressful period of months or even years. So to live on sugar and live on stimulants and live on takeaways and junk food, in this case, would really not be sensible. It'll probably just deplete you even faster and even more. So here is when we want to really consider the importance of nutrition as a priority. Eating good quality food, good quality protein, enough of the good fats. We want to eat, a whole lot of diversity of vegetables, different colors. And we want to make sure that we're prioritizing nutrition as if this is the air in the tires of this vehicle, it is the fuel, it's the battery, it's the oil, because this is going to ensure that this vehicle can keep going. And that when the red light goes on to indicate that the fuel is low or the battery is low, that we immediately stop, pay attention to that, and then rectify that if possible. Also nutrients. There are some very particular nutrients that I prescribe and that I recommend. It's obviously personalized. It's obviously based on each individual's need. And this is not just an across the board prescription, but the nutrients that I would particularly be paying attention to and consider would be the group of B vitamins, especially vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid. And I wouldn't work with 1 or 2 milligrams a day for somebody who's starting to feel exhausted or for somebody who's sort of on the brink of burnout. I would use certain questionnaires again to consider therapeutic dosages of certain nutrients, because if the tires are very flat, we're not just going to put in a little bit of air. That's not going to make any difference. So for somebody who's really tired, or for somebody going through a lot of stress at the time and we want to prevent the fatigue, we might want to really step up with the B vitamins at the time. And there are some ranges that I really like working with because the dosages per tablet or per capsule are really high. I would say at least 20 to 25 milligram of each of the major Bs. And no, I don't think it's always possible to get this from your food. So sometimes a supplementary regime or protocol is essential so that this person doesn't become burnt out, or when they're really feeling fatigued so that they can start feeling better. So B vitamins is one of my main considerations. It's difficult to say what should come first and what should come second, because magnesium is also one of those top considerations. Magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate for sleep as well, or a combination of different magnesiums, and in a high enough dose so that the person starts to feel a difference. I dose up to, in my practice, where the person starts to feel a difference, and then I start to tone down again. So I don't do the smallest dose possible. If somebody is really feeling tired, really struggling with strain and stress, I want to start on a higher dose, and I want to consider the best form of these nutrients. So magnesium will help with sleep, but it'll also help with energy. So it's one of those minerals that so many people lack, and it makes such a big difference. Of course, I like omega-3 as a daily foundation nutrient. So that is not for me one of the additions. I like a good quality omega-3 for brain health and inflammation as part of the foundation, but that would be part of this group of nutrients. And then there are some herbs, depending on each person. If they're on medications, one's got to be careful about what are the herbal interactions that you might find. But there are herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola that are very versatile. They can be applied in situations where there's stress and fatigue, where there's stress and somebody feeling wired. And these kind of herbs we call adaptogens. We call them adaptogens because they help the body adapt during times of stress. It does not take the stress away. It does not numb the stress, but it helps the body to be a little bit more resilient, to be able to adapt. And I remember once in one of Patrick Holford's talks that I attended a long time ago, when he described, the stress protocol, or how to work with somebody who is very stressed and very tired. And he mentioned something like when the body loses its ability to adapt to stress, you then have to really come in with a carefully planned recipe or a protocol or a consideration. So I'm not somebody who uses either B vitamins or magnesium or rhodiola or ashwagandha. I like to create a blend of these nutrients and herbs and minerals for each individual, so that now we're supporting the body on all different angles, so that you as a client or a patient or as an individual can start to regain your ability to adapt to stress. Of course, at the same time, you should consider whether maybe your stress is just too much, and if there's a way to take some of the burden away, if there's a way that you could perhaps take on less. Overachievers will typically take on too much and drive themselves to the point of burnout, so they won't listen to when their body is urging them to slow down. And they would want to do more than the rest, and they would want to do it perfectly. So, of course, that's going to be one of the risk factors for somebody who's always pushing past where the body is actually able to adapt. And while we're using the nutrients, we also want to look at the lifestyle. We want to make sure we're addressing the sleep. So now if sleep starts to improve and you start to increase your nutrients and your nutritional support, now the body can start to shift out of this fatigued state, or to start to at least adapt to stress better. There's also lots of talk about certain mushrooms that are helpful, other herbs, herbal combinations, and I like to use various different ranges, very different combinations, but each person is different, so each plan might look quite different compared to somebody else's. And that's why I often say to clients, don't tell your friend to use this, that, and the other because you're using it. They are different. We need to look at them and assess them individually and decide there might be overlap, but there might not be. Also, when I look at clients in my practice and when I look at the overall picture, in recent years, I've started to talk more and more about regulating the nervous system. A lot of you would hear on social media talk about nervous system regulation, the vagus nerve, parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, cold plunges, breathing, meditation, all these different ways that one can restore the regulation of the nervous system. And it really is part of the foundation. And I think more doctors and more health practitioners should be paying attention to this. And it started to occur to me several years ago when I would be prescribing a really comprehensive protocol for some clients. And I knew that they were following it diligently, that they were doing exactly as I requested them to do. They were taking the nutrients, they were avoiding the gluten, they were not drinking too much coffee, they were making sure that they were getting adequate sleep, but some of these symptoms just would not shift, especially digestive symptoms, interestingly enough. And what that made me realize is that if we're living primarily in the sympathetic nervous system zone of fight, flee, freeze, if we primarily living in this place of survival mode, that the body really only prioritizes survival, that when you are in this predominantly in this sympathetic zone, that your body is not really going to prioritize gut health or sleep or your immune system or how stressed you are, or how fatigued you are. The main concern and the main focus is going to be on survival. So the whole deal with regulating your nervous system and finding ways to come out of that survival mode, unless you are being chased by a wild animal or unless there really is an emergency, it's so important to find these ways and these simple tools that I also share with clients, and it will be one of the videos coming in the next week or so, we want to make sure that our body does not perceive stress that isn't there. And maybe another way of saying this is you don't want to be running away from something that's not there. You don't want to be running away from the predator that's perhaps not there. So regulating your nervous system is really important. And those vagus nerve exercises, from the breathing to the gargling to the cold water immersion to the yoga or the meditation, any of those and all of those are really helpful, because that's going to put you in a more regulated state so that your body can now prioritize and know, okay, right now I've got to sleep, right now I've got to walk and breathe, right now my immune system needs a bit of help and support. So how you respond to stress is one aspect of how we approach this. If your body's lost its ability to respond and adapt appropriately, we need to restore that so that we don't end up just trying to live on coffee and stimulants, and then we run out of steam, and then we need something to sleep, and then we need another medication to wake us up in the morning, and then it just becomes a really vicious cycle and a downward spiral, of course. So I would say some of the main takeaways is always prioritize sleep, 7 to 8 to 9 hours a night. Try to prioritize good nutrition. Stay away from sugars and junk foods and takeaway meals, and focus on real whole nourishing food. And if you can't do anything else, then focus on good protein at least. Free range meat and chicken and eggs, good quality protein will be a very good start. Ask for help. If you're finding that things are getting on top of you and that it's hard to cope and you don't know which way to turn, don't feel embarrassed to ask for help. Call a friend, call a practitioner, and try to understand that, maybe a few small changes, a few adaptations, or maybe a few add-ins can change the way in which your body starts to adapt and perceive better energy and perceive more calm and focus. So beating fatigue and beating burnout really starts by paying attention, recognizing and acknowledging before you get to that point of no return. Yes, it takes time to turn the ship around, but it definitely can be done, and I'm an example of that. So I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. Let me know if you have questions. Thank you for watching, and I will continue with this theme and a few other aspects around fatigue, burnout, depression in the next week or so.